Alright, hello and welcome to the video. My name is Wade Smith, and this video is about applying the first sequence of Seisan kata to self-defense. It's actually going to be, if I remember right, the kata is something like you step out and circle block, then you punch, block, step through, punch, block, step through, punch, block, step through. And then after the third punch block, you you cross block up in the kata anyway, like there's an attack coming overhead perhaps, supposedly, but there's other reasons for it as I'm about to explain. And you step through and into a cross stance and you turn around and throw. All right, well, this cross block is actually you grabbing the lapel and perhaps the underhooks of the other person, stepping through and throwing them to the ground. All right, and I know because I've actually been in a fight where I ended up using this a long time ago, right after I first learned it in the seventh or eighth grade, I guess. Yeah, when I got into a fight, and I know that it works against school bullies. So that's mainly for you don't get in a lot of fights as an adult unless you go to bad places like bars and whatnot. Then you might get in a fight. But as a kid, you get in a fight because there's a bully beating the hell out of you every day, and eventually you get sick of it and beat the bully off. But the way this works, so it's like you let's see in the kata, I think you bow and you step out and block, punch, block, punch, block, and then there's another step through and punch, block. All right, so your hands are here, I think. And then you step through, step up, X block, and step over and grab and throw. So basically, it's not blocking an overhand attack. You know that's the first thing they teach it to you in basics. But when you get to the bunkai, it's actually a grappling maneuver that you're grabbing. You're either framing the opponent's neck or you're grabbing the opponent by the neck or the lapel or their gi or their shirt or whatever they've got on and throwing them. All right, you could in fact be blocking an overhand attack though. That works if they throw an overhand haymaker like this and you double cross block it and catch it and then go through the throwing motion. You're going to break their arm over your shoulder in that case. And you say, well, maybe you're giving up your back. If you break their arm, giving up your back won't matter. So that's why that's still valid. Because what's going to happen is their elbow is going to be hyperextended over your shoulder like this. It's going to be wrist up and hyperextended over your shoulder, and you're going to have this wrist lock on them, and you're going to break or hyperextend their elbow over your shoulder at the fulcrum of the elbow. They're not going to want to fight after that. So even if you give your back for a split second like that, it's only that much time that your back will be given up, but their elbow will be destroyed for life. All right. So I wouldn't worry about that situation. Uh, and honestly, for self defense against noobs, against people who can't fight, that might be all you need is those two possible outcomes. Uh, Plus maybe five swords from Kenpo Karate. So what is a five swords? In five swords, we know that a lot of attacks at the beginning of a fight end up being a right hook or a right overhand haymaker, or it could be a left hook or left overhand haymaker. But most people are right-handed, so um, you practice against the right hand more often than the left, but you really practice it both ways. So in the basic five swords form, uh, you step into the incoming attack and chop block like this, double chop block. One block goes to the radius bone of the attacker's arm, and one block goes to the dead center of the biceps of the attacker's arm. Is where we're aiming. And yes, I can do this even against a black belt. All right. So you double chop block the arm. You can back fist, which is a good move, or you can hammer fist, or you can chop the person in the neck, or you can back fist them in the nose or eye. You can palm heel them in the nose or jaw. uppercut under the ribs for a good body dig. It's going to hit right about in here and straight into the stomach. Maybe makes them vomit. And then you're going to step back into a cross stance and hammer fist into the temple or the eye when they double over in the pain that's going to give them. Now, a more advanced thing in Five Swords is you can chop block with one hand while you simultaneously, let me see if I can get this right, simultaneously hit them in the side of the neck. All right. So here I'm parrying or blocking with my hand, but it's not back here like you sometimes incorrectly see demonstrations in martial arts. It's in front of my face, intercepting the other person's hand right about here at the radius bone. And I'm simultaneously karate chopping their neck or palm healing them in the nose or jaw. All right, and that's the more advanced version of Five Swords. Is just even because most street fights you're going to be surprised or caught off guard, right? You're going to be standing flat-footed, and the other person's going to throw a punch at you. Well, hopefully you prepared a little bit in a non-escalating way by giving yourself a stance at least and get your hands up like, hey man, I don't want to fight. All right, don't do this before the fight because that's escalation. But if you say, hey, I don't want to fight, your hands are already up to guard position, but it doesn't look like a fighting stance. And then you're not escalating the fight. I don't want to fight, man. They throw a punch. You do something, block, kick, do something to counterattack them. It's totally surprising. All right. But I think we used to organize self-defense situations into 4 levels of threat. One is just verbal threat where like nothing's really happening. And then the next one is minimum force or minimum deterrence. You do exactly what it takes to beat one attacker and nothing more so you don't hurt them. The next one is destructive force. You may have 1 or 2 attackers and you need to seriously hurt the first one in order to have time to fight the second one. And then the final one is lethal force, which we don't want to use unless we absolutely have to and only if we're outnumbered several to 1. But destructive force would be hitting someone in the throat, yes, but you know, as a more or less distracting strike, as if it could be a distracting strike. Destructive force is hyperextending that elbow and totally snapping it. Okay. Destructive force is cross-heel stomp kicking the inside of their knee and destroying their knee. That's what we're talking about. That's level 3 threat. We need to do that sometimes in street self-defense to survive. A kick to the groin is a level 2. Okay. Destructive force could be eye gouge. But so you scale your level of self-defense to what the threat entails. If you're outnumbered 2 or 3 to 1, you may have to literally cripple the first 1 or 2 attackers to survive to fight the second or third attacker. Understand? And if it's a true self-defense situation, you're going to have to go to court afterwards and you're going to have to plead self-defense and plead your case to why you injured somebody. But that can't be helped because a lot of times the only way to stop them attacking is, in fact, to injure them. All right. So there's a lot of good bunkai in kata, even if you don't memorize all of the sequencing of the kata exactly right. Just memorize the techniques themselves, and you got the meaning of the kata. All right. Thank you very much. And again, you know, this can be blocking an overhand attack, but it's actually supposed to be targeted at the throat, where you're grabbing the person by the lapel and stepping through and throwing them over your hip and shoulder onto the pavement. Okay, understand that that's actually teaching judo and jiu-jitsu from a karate kata. All right, thank you very much.